All right, folks, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I'm very excited to be joined by a special guest who made it no clearer that he is a Lakers partisan folk. Joining the podcast on today, it is Harrison Faigen at HM Faigen on Twitter, excuse me. Harrison, it's fantastic for you to be here. I do really appreciate it, of course. Thank you so much for tuning in. How are you after what was a tough loss for you guys, right?
Well, I thank you for having me, Ryan. It's always fun to jump back on with you. But as you can tell, belief is high. We still believe. It's the Lakers. Everybody gave up on them, early in the season, and even after the trade deadline said, are they even going to make it out of the play-in? And look at us, Western Conference Finals, just a little small family business that could, overcoming the odds. And I think down 1-0, it is their first time trailing in a playoff series, but I'm not ready to give up the belief yet.
Good Lord. Are we? This is my least favorite bit that comes out of Laker fandom is this we believe.
Hey, look, it's a little small independent business run, family owned for years in Los Angeles, primary source of income for the Buss family. They can't compete with these big market teams like Denver and
Walmart owner. Walmart.
And yeah, the Walmart owners. It's just like that is an unparalleled bankroll that the Lakers cannot hope to match. And so just the fact that they're here is an achievement, I think. And just again, little team that could. Just one all NBA player going up against the two-time MVP, no one on the all defense team, just no one getting executive of the year votes, no one getting coach of the year votes. It's just a bunch of overachievers coming together, trying to be greater than the sum of their parts. And so
wow. Wow. I see you have rehearsed that over several hours of podcasting. That's for sure. Harrison, for everybody that's a Nuggets fan in the chat, Harrison was my boss for a very brief amount of time at SB Nation. He's
I think about 2 days. Manager.
Yeah, 2 days. And then I told him, I'm out. Harrison took over. I'm done. And no, it's so funny that's ultimately what happened. To kind of transitioned away. It started a whole transition, but I've now been at MHS for the better part of a year, and things are going okay. Things are going pretty well, but do really appreciate it, of course, and do really appreciate you stopping in and helping out this small business over here. No, it's we're doing great, but I wanted to in this podcast, I wanted to be able to get your takes as a Lakers writer, as a partisan for the Lakers side of things. The Lakers fan base, I think, is still very confident, is still very positive about what happened last night, despite the fact that it was an L, despite the fact that they hadn't lost either of the previous two game ones when they went on the road. And it felt like for the vast majority of that game that the Nuggets were the way better team. And then you make an adjustment, and we can talk about all of those things, but it definitely felt like the Nuggets were really good. And then the Lakers hit them with this massive counterpunch that Lakers fans all feel very good about and feel good about for the rest of the series. So just wanted to be able to get your perspective on that throughout this podcast. And we can talk about how serious that is, how fake that is, how fake some of the Nuggets' ultimate adjustments will end up being, what it's going to look like. But I'm just very curious. Hangover takes for game one. What's the first thing that stands out to you?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is that I think this is going to be a long series. Like, I don't think that this is going to be some, if the Lakers, I may have felt differently if the Lakers had just sort of wilted last night and just sort of, rode out, the final throws of a game that was a blowout for basically 3 quarters, for the majority of 3 quarters at least. Like, they really only started to make their run in the fourth. There were a couple times, obviously, throughout the game where they got it a little closer, but Denver always sort of pretty quickly pushed back on it. Whether if they let their foot off the gas for a couple minutes, it's like, oh, Lakers cut it to 10 or Lakers cut it to 12, and it's Denver's pushing back out and extending towards 20. So if that would have continued for the entire game, I think maybe I'd feel a little differently today. I'm not of the mind that because the Lakers came back that Denver moral loss. Lakers have figured them out. They just ran out of time. I think that the truth is more somewhere in the middle, where these two teams are more evenly matched than I think the first three quarters showed. But, I don't think that the Lakers are going to go on like a 20-2 run, every single game, just by putting Rui onto Jokić. I don't think that that is necessarily like a master key that unlocks, all of their potential every single time. I think it's a look that they're going to go to. I think like any look and Denver fans, I don't need to tell this, like any look that you throw at Jokić, it's not going to work for an entire 48 minutes. But I think the Lakers have found sort of one defensive strategy that they can throw to kind of gum up the works a little bit. And now it is going to be on both teams, frankly, to adjust more, because the Lakers have to figure out, okay, how do we get closer to 48 minutes of good play versus just 8, in the last game. And for the Nuggets, it's okay, if they're going to do this, now they have the tape, they know what the Lakers sent at them, and they have to look at, okay, how do we adjust for this? How do we get Aaron Gordon, either out of the dunker spot? How do we get him on the move? Is the answer kind of bringing him up and having him be a screener? But then, okay, LA is surely going to anticipate that, and they're going to be anticipating these counters and prepping for these possible counters, because just like the Nuggets, we're talking today that they've seen teams kind of throw, a smaller guy on Jokić and have a rim protector sort of come in as that secondary defensive attacker, just like they've seen that before. The Lakers have seen how teams adjust to this strategy before, and so they're going to have to prepare. And game 2, I think, is going to be fascinating on who can come out and sort of adjust and get the most natural advantages out of those counters. And so I'm excited to watch it. I think it's going to be a really good series. I predicted Lakers in 7 going in, and I think that regardless of whether or not, that's a coin flip of a prediction, basically, because by virtue of going 7, that's, you're saying that you think the other team could very well win the series. I do think that it's going to be a long series, and I'm really curious to see how both teams continue to adjust.
Yeah, going to have a lot of adjustments for sure. And with a team like the Lakers with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you have a lot of flexibility there. You've got a lot of different pieces that are very smart, very intelligent, very versatile. And the Lakers have built a roster where they can pick and choose kind of the elements that they'd like in order to go from game to game, which should give them some advantages throughout this series. But I think the first thing that really popped into my head when trying to figure out, okay, what actually happened with this one, is that neither Jokić or AD could actually stop the other person. And I do think that impacts the Lakers more, because I think the Nuggets weren't really expecting to be able to stop AD with Jokić one-on-one to begin with. That obviously bore out, and Denver's got to do a better job of shrinking on AD and making things more difficult for him going forward. And I think that they will. But with the Lakers, it was so bad for the first 3 quarters that in order to get back into the game, they had to, I think, show their first hand. They had to show their first major adjustment in this series. And usually in that situation, if it's a good adjustment, which it clearly was, usually in that adjustment, it usually leads to a win. I'm not sure, because this one was a Nuggets win and they got to see it and they got to actually understand what's coming. I think that will help them going forward. But that's at least one thing that I'm thinking about is, okay, Denver was affected by AD going off. The Lakers were affected by Jokić going off, but I think the Lakers were the first team to blink and had to be the first team to blink in this one. And I do think that matters for kind of how the rest of the series is going to go.
Yeah, no, I think for sure it does. And it is one of these things where Denver can, I joked about the moral loss thing earlier, but to some degree, there is an element of that where, if Denver had just won by 30, or if the Lakers had never shown that adjustment, then Denver's going into game 2. And of course, they're like every coaching staff, they're going to prep for adjustments and try and brief their team. But there is, I think, a psychological factor that we see this throughout sort of the playoffs and with various teams. If you're coming off a win, you're not necessarily going to be mentally ready for that counter punch if you felt like you were pretty dominant in the previous game. And so I do think that there is a certain level of advantage for the Nuggets in that they took this punch, like you said, they came out with the win anyway. So it's not like where the Lakers threw this amazing adjustment and then they stole a win and now it's on Denver. They kind of get both, where they got the win and they get the opportunity to be like, okay, we got punched in the mouth a little bit. We're going to have to adjust to this because this is a real threat for us. And this is something that we've seen can sort of take us off our game. But at the same time, the Lakers now sort of go into, I thought that honestly, the Lakers, for the most part, I think the first half was a little bit of altitude stuff. Like they clearly were not kind of, I'm sure you've seen this over the years as many times as anyone, but you can tell when a team kind of doesn't have their legs under them right away, and that was part of it. And I think the Nuggets just frankly came out and kicked their ass to start that game, and were clearly more up for it than the Lakers were. And it's not like they had some massive rest advantage. I think maybe one day, so it's not that type of thing. They just clearly, they're there, they're in front of their home fans, they're in the Western Conference Finals, they were ready to go out and take it. And I think the Lakers came into it a little bit more with less of sort of that energy and execution and hunger than the Nuggets did. And that's not to chalk all of it up to that intangible stuff, but I think that the Lakers are going to play better than they did in the first half of last night's game over the course of this series. And I think that, you and I, the last time we podcasted, we talked about video games and, our shared love of them. And the analogy that I made earlier today on our podcast was, I don't know if you're playing Jedi Survivor or,
I just finished Jedi Fallen Order because I had never actually fully completed it. So I finished Jedi Fallen Order. I'm probably going to play Survivor here soon.
Okay, so this is going to resonate with you. In that game, there's a good amount of puzzles, and part of the puzzles is like timing and doing steps in the correct order. And it's like, okay, I figured out that with this power, I can make this kind of ball rotate here, and this thing go here. But for some reason, it's not all clicking together. And so I feel like the Lakers had a lot of the puzzle answers. They just didn't necessarily, kind of pull those levers in the right order. Like I think the small lineup can work. I just don't think that it can work against Denver starters. I think that it's clearly a Rui series, and so I would imagine he comes into next game and gets the start because they lost. That'll kind of give Ham the, ability to go to that adjustment and not have anyone feel like they're being punished, despite like coming in off of game 6. If they would have went to that lineup, like it would have felt, I think that's a harder thing to sell in the locker room, where if you're coming off a loss, it's like, okay, you guys had your chance. We're going to Rui. It was clear to anyone, with eyes how effective he was. So I think that some of that stuff, and then also I think game 1 sort of clearly showed that this is not a Vando series. I think I would look for Wenyen Gabriel to potentially, sort of replace his minutes, or, for them to try and, at least send him to the offensive glass or do some different stuff, because I thought, frankly, he hustled them out of the game a little bit in that first and kind of second quarter, where he was just, he clearly had energy. He was trying, but he was almost too physical and was sort of everywhere and just did not appear to be an offensive liability, didn't seem to have a natural defensive matchup. I would sort of look more for the Lakers to, if they're going to go to those small units, doing it against the Nuggets bench, which is very small, without Jokić in the game, and sort of trying to get Rui in there more from the jump. Not necessarily always to defend Jokić, because I do think that some of that is still going to fall to AD, but I think that the Lakers have sort of some answers to some of these puzzles. They just sort of have to deploy them a little bit differently.
One of the, and I want to save the Rui adjustment for the second segment, and we'll make sure to keep people around for some of the answers that we have on that one. But I do think that in general, Bruce Brown, Rui Hachimura, those guys were both very good coming off the bench in this game. Bruce Brown, on one of those plays that you're talking about, Vando being a little bit over aggressive, kind of gets out of Bruce's way, trying to pressure him full court. Bruce dusts him, gets to the rim, big dunk, very, very important play for Denver in that third quarter. And it's just going to be those types of things that a guy like Bruce Brown continues to do. He's been great for Denver in these playoffs, and I think he'll be important for this series. Although one thing that we saw is that neither of these teams really could stop the other, and like 132 to 126 is a pretty big deal. I think that Denver will figure out some stuff with the Rui adjustment, and that's not going to like shut down their entire offense, but the shooting should still be able to continue, unless, I mean, is the Nuggets shooting or the Lakers shooting more sustainable? I think both teams had a really, really strong game 1 in terms of the actual shots that they were hitting. Let me just hit you with some numbers here. Lakers, they shot 84% at the rim, 16 of 19. Obviously, you've got a really talented group. You've got Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Those guys are great at finishing at the rim. The Nuggets aren't great at protecting the rim. That probably will continue. 71% on corner threes. We'll see. Like maybe that will continue. Maybe it won't. 88% of the free throw line. Like AD is a very good free throw shooter. LeBron's not a great free throw shooter, and he did miss. But the other guys, actually, there were only 4 other free throws attempted, and they're all by Reeves, who's a good free throw shooter himself. So those will probably continue. Nuggets, they shot 69% on long twos. Nice. 9 of 13 from the field, 50% on above the break threes, which is probably the biggest thing if we're talking about this. I think the Lakers, one of the things I identified about the Lakers was that they give up a lot of open threes at the top of the key and then kind of above the break. Just because if AD is going to sag into the paint, then that's just where Denver's threes are going to have to come. And they took them and they made them. And the 57% on the tightly contested threes, those are the ones where, yeah, like Murray hits a shot over LeBron. That wasn't actually a three. It got downgraded to a 2. But like Denver shot really well. And Lakers fans were not very happy with people saying, yeah, Denver can absolutely keep doing that. I'm here to tell most Lakers fans, especially if you're in the chat, if you're listening to this, Denver shoots really well, and they are probably the best shooting team in the league, if we're being honest. They've got dynamic shooters that are capable of doing a lot of different things, and they can go off the pull-up, they can go off the catch, and you're going to be surprised. You're going to continue to be surprised too.
Yeah, and I so sort of to the question on the Chiron there, which one is more sustainable? You have to say the Nuggets to some degree, just because you meant like they are a better offensive team than the Lakers are, But that said, some of that stuff, like the above the break numbers that you mentioned, like that has very much been, that's a very Darvin Ham, Bucksy, like sort of like if we're going to give up threes, or we have to give up something, but we're going to give up this specific type of three. And the Nuggets, credit to them, like on some level, you're gonna live or die by that. And if the Nuggets are going to shoot 50% on above the break threes, then the Lakers are probably especially on 24 of them, the Lakers are probably just going to lose that game. Like that's going to be a tough sort of thing to overcome. Where I don't like 50%. That seems unlikely to continue. Even if it drops to 40%, that takes a couple points off the board and sort of makes a difference. But, again, I don't know if the Nuggets are going to shoot like 40% on those shots. Like, especially if the Lakers are going to get smarter about who they're giving up those shots to, I think we may end up seeing a few more of those come to Aaron Gordon, depending on how the Nuggets try to counter this sort of, when AD is on him versus Rui type of thing. And then is that shooting going to continue from him? Like, probably not. So, if you're redistributing some of those shots, that makes a difference. You shouted out Bruce Brown. I want to sort of in turn shout out the Nuggets coaching staff, because they clearly watched the footage of the Lakers' first 2 rounds, where anytime LeBron and Rui were the front court and AD was off the floor, that he was like a heat-seeking missile going to the rim, and so was the whole Nuggets staff. And that's something that the Lakers, LeBron's going to have a really loud kind of chase down weak side block every so often. Rui has actually shown capable of those every so often, but for the most part, you're going to be able to get to the rim at will against that front court. And so that is something, again, where, I would like to see some Wenyen Gabriel minutes from the Lakers, just sort of to have a bigger body out there that makes you at least think about it. And even if he's very foul prone, like makes the Nuggets earn it at the line type of thing, rather than giving up a layup line where, again, that's contributing to those sky high Nuggets shooting numbers, where the Lakers were just, if you allow a parade of layups during the minutes that AD is not in, then like the Nuggets are going to shoot really, really well. And so some of that is the Lakers have been the best defense in the playoffs until last night. I don't know if that's still the case after last night. They certainly allow the defensive rating, I'm sure, took a hit. I have not looked at it today, but I don't know if it's best in the playoffs anymore, but they were until that point. And I would expect them to have some answers, but I also would expect them to probably, on some of those 3-point attempts, probably shoot a little worse. Although, again, that's not the majority of their offense. And I do think that last night showed that they can attack Jokić. They can attack the Nuggets around the rim. And that is going to be something that's fruitful for them. So can they eliminate some of those threes for Denver and sort of keep this thing a little closer and tilt the math game more their way? Like that's sort of what I would expect to see.
We will just have to play that by ear. I know that these are all the adjustments that the Nuggets are going to have to go through, that the Lakers are going to have to go through. And there's going to be a lot to it. It's just how this is. I didn't say that this was going to be a long series, but kind of regretting that.
Well, that's just because you're a hater.
Just a hater.
Hate small business.
That's who I am. That's what I do. So it's always fun. It's always fun because you can't have takes on the old Tweety bird anymore. So, but it is what it is. Tell you what, though, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into just some other questions on strict adjustments for Game 2 for both teams, including is the Lakers starting lineup actually going to change or not? We will see. But first, everybody, this podcast, as you know, is brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. Bring that big bet energy this summer with Superbook. They are the most trusted name in sports betting. And right now, use promo code MILEHIGH to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they will match your first bet up to $250 with promo code MileHigh. Simply visit superbook.com for terms and conditions or download the Superbook Colorado app in the app stores. Enter the promo code MileHigh and you'll get $250 courtesy of Mile High Sports and Superbook Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate all the love and support on the podcast, folks. If you can, drop a like on the show. Trying to grow the YouTube program over here at Mile High Sports. I got some good things going on, and we've got some stellar backgrounds going into this thing. If we have more guests on, the We Believe Lakers. Those are some words that I hope I never have to utter in a couple weeks. That would be great. That would be great. But of course, I'm joined here by Harrison Faigen, who it's very strong with the Lakers. He understands everything that goes on, and written for Silver Screen and Roll for years. You also do a podcast with Anthony Irwin, correct?
Yes, yeah. We the Lakers Lounge over on Blue Wire.
So if you're looking for a Lakers podcast, that's the one. I'm sure that you'll love listening to Harrison and you'll hate listening to Anthony. That's probably what's going to happen if we're being honest. But honestly, that's generally what I tell people. So yeah, I think that's fair. Anthony is he's not making friends with Nuggets folks right now. let me tell you.
You know what's funny? He doesn't really make friends with anyone. Lakers fans get mad at him for being too negative, and then other fans get mad at him for some of his takes on there. He's an irritant. He is a little bit. He's like the Draymond Green of podcast. Well, that's probably a bad comparison, but
now it's a bad example because he actually
because I guess Draymond Green is the Draymond Green of podcasting. So I don't know. Maybe he's like he's the Dennis Schroeder. Moderately successful, that kind of moderately successful, irritating.
Flopping a lot.
Yeah, I think that works.
I love it. No, you guys make sure to check out Lakers Lounge with Harrison and Anthony. Those guys do great work. All right, let's talk adjustments for game 2 for both teams here. I've got 4 questions that I really wanted to base this off of, but we can go any direction that you want to. First one, we've already covered. Let's get into the Rui Hachimura discussion just a little bit here, just because I think that he's going to start. I think that he will probably not guard Jokić immediately, but there will be plenty of times where they switch different actions, where they do what they can to provide a little bit more size, even if it's just against somebody like Michael Porter Jr., like making sure that they have a guy who can match up size-wise with him. I'm surprised that Denver didn't go to Michael Porter a little bit more down the stretch, just because he was kicking ass in a lot of that time. So I can't imagine they will, both teams will try to adjust to that, but having Rui out there at least provides a little bit more size, athleticism, and interior defense. And so if they want to go to the Rui guards Jokić, AD guards AG, that's perfectly reasonable for them.
Yeah, and so what's funny was coming into sort of yesterday's game and sort of watching the Nuggets, go up against the Lakers. We're finally seeing this matchup. The thing that struck me was, and I don't know if this is just because KCP is on the team, but it reminded me size-wise a little bit of, especially against the smaller Lakers starting lineup of the 2020 bubble Lakers that Nuggets fans know and love, where it's this. Yeah, just like the Nuggets were the ones all of a sudden that were the bigger, stronger, faster. Yeah, it's funny. We called those Lakers the bigger, stronger, faster Lakers. It's weird to say faster about a team with Jokić on it, but I think it still works. He's still, he gets the ball moving down the floor. He's the only player in NBA history to ever be deceptively quick, actually deceptively quick, so I think it works. And, obviously Gordon's a little smaller than AD at the 4 or whatever, but they still had size advantages basically at every single position. And we're shooting over the Lakers lineup like they were, folding chairs in a draft workout in BG on Leon. And so I think it's, you're going to have, I think if you're the Lakers, the Rui adjustment, sort of like what you're talking about, it just gets a little more size on the floor to contest those shots a little bit more, to just make the Nuggets think about it a little bit more often than they really had to early on against that Lakers lineup. And so I do expect him to start. I think it will probably be for Dennis, although, I guess maybe there's a chance that it's D'Lo, but that seems unlikely to me. Just, you had the report from Dave McMenamin. The Lakers don't really view that as sort of a realistic demotion, at least right now, where they think that they may lose him. And that's sort of some of the similar phrasing that we heard last year about, like, why isn't Russell Westbrook coming off the bench? It's like, well, we think, we're going to lose him, which is usually code for, like, he's going to stop trying if that happens. And so, I don't see how the Lakers are running into the same problem with another guy named Russell, but I guess that's where we're at. And so, and again, like, I think D'Lo will play better than he did in game one. Like, he's been a guy that has been up and down the whole playoffs. It may take until they get back to Los Angeles. He's generally played better in the friendly confines of the crypt. But like, he is a guy that is up and down. He's somewhere between sort of a 16 and 82 game player. He's not a complete sort of regular season merchant where, like, he just can't do any, like your Malik Beasley's or whatever, where it's like, that guy unplayable in the playoffs, get him off the floor. But like, he is not someone that's going to be there for you in all 16, wins or whatever it may be. And so I think it's fine to keep starting him. I think it is going to be Rui for Dennis, and I think you see Dennis come in and try to sort of wreak havoc as like a change of pace off the bench, still getting into some of those like Murray plus bench units where he's trying to kind of harass him and pester him around there. But that's sort of, I'm sort of with you, and what I would expect to see is not necessarily like, okay, Rui, you're defending Jokić for, I don't know how many minutes a game he averages, 38, whatever, in the playoffs, somewhere around there. But like, all right, Rui, you're on him all 38. Like, I don't think that's the answer either, but I do think that it'll be sort of like a change of pace, like him and AD maybe switching a little bit, just to sort of, keep him guessing. No, don't make him comfortable. That's sort of what you have to do.
Yeah, I think we'll just go back to that one here real quick. I think that one of the things that Denver may try in those situations is sliding MPJ to the 4, taking out Aaron Gordon altogether, and just going with Porter and other shooters are surrounding the Murray Jokić pick and roll. Or they keep AG on the floor because they feel like they have to, if they're going to guard LeBron in that situation, then they've got to do it. And then they will go that other direction. One of the lineups that stood out to me last night, one of the reasons why the Lakers came back was Denver went to Murray, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, Jeff Green, Nikola Jokić. So they're 3 bench guys with Murray and Jokić. And it's just not a lot of spacing. And that was right when LeBron James came off the floor and they had Rui at the 4 and AD at the 5. And they didn't fully like get into that adjustment where they were actually having Rui guard, but it allowed them to sag off a little bit. And Jokić was still doing some crazy things, but that lineup actually sucked for Denver. It wasn't good, and it actually gave up a run. So it would not surprise me if the Nuggets decide to slide Michael Porter down, make sure that he is spacing the floor in that situation. If you don't give AD a guy that he can really roam off of, then it's a little bit different. And I think that Denver will probably try to go that direction. And as Michael Malone talked about today, they've got other things in the tank too. They'll probably try to move Aaron Gordon around a little bit more rather than just having him set up in the dunker the entire time, as you mentioned previously.
Yeah, and like, that he can probably do. We saw the Lakers do this some with Vando in like sort of a similar situation where it's like, okay, there's this 4 out there that teams aren't really respecting, where they send him to the offensive glass more. And Aaron Gordon is more than capable of sort of doing that and trying to take advantage of that, thing. So I would expect when he's on the floor to see a little bit more of that and a little bit more active, like, hey, I'm just going to try and use this. I was talking to Anthony earlier today on our podcast. He's one of the few guys that you've ever been able to compare athletically to LeBron, where and like have it not be an insane, like he's one of the most athletic guys in NBA history. And so I think sending him to the boards, he's strong, trying to get those long arms out there, like I'm going to either tip this out or tip it back up on the rim or do something to kind of make myself a little bit more of a problem, because as we've seen with the Lakers, they have had issues boxing out when AD's man, when he rotates off of that guy. That has been something that has been fruitful for opponents of them, like at points. Again, the Lakers have won that math game more more often than not, just because AD coming over as a secondary guy is usually just so problematic for teams where they're trying to figure it out that they can't take advantage of it enough. But it is something where, the Nuggets would get a couple buckets off of that probably, and then I actually, the taking him off the floor straight up and just sort of going MPJ, 4 out around Jokić is an interesting one because, like you said, like that sort of, that nullifies that adjustment where you can't, have AD just completely abandon Michael Porter Jr. And so does he have to go back onto Jokić? And then does that sort of, hurt the utility of going to that lineup and having Rui out there more? Like, I don't know. And that's something that the Lakers are going to have to figure out. And for sure.
Yeah, there's plenty of things that'll go back and forth between these two teams. Like if you take off Aaron Gordon, then what does that do to defending LeBron James? And now LeBron was consistently getting hunted by LeBron, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. But going back to D'Angelo Russell here, he's a guy that like Denver made it no mistake about it that they were trying to play D'Angelo Russell off the floor in Game 1. Like
and we're very proud of themselves for doing so. I will say it is the first time that I don't know if you've covered the NBA for quite a while now. I can't recall a coach talking about an opposing player and playing them off the floor and like questioning whether or not they can play in the series openly in the media as often as Michael Malone has over the last 24 hours. Like it's definitely a Phil Jackson-esque attempt at like, I'm going to see if I can get this guy to say F you, and then I'm going to take like 20 shots and try and prove this dumbass, Mike Malone. Sorry, Michael Malone. Wrong.
Hey, that's right. That's right. Don't you get it twisted now. But no, I think
I said like if the Lakers lose Game 2, I'm going to start tweeting out his quotes as Mikey Malone and just see like if I can get in his head, if that could be like my D'Lo like sort of adjustment. Like I don't.
That's amazing.
Let's see Mikey Malone, run these lineups at crypto.
Miguel Malone. That would be. He's Miguel Malone in Los Angeles. Yeah, that's fine. No, I think that's going to be fascinating. I do think it's kind of goading D'Angelo Russell a little bit. Like he's definitely hearing all of that. The Lakers are definitely hearing all that. They're going to try to keep D'Angelo in the series as much as they can, and they're going to try to set him up. And whether he can do that on the road or not remains to be seen. Like we're just going to have to figure that out. He's had moments in the past where he's folded, like, notably for the Minnesota Timberwolves. The last time he played Denver, right before he was traded to the Lakers, famously, he got ejected. Like that was his last moment as a Minnesota Timberwolf. Was in a Nuggets
I did not
game.
realize that. That's very.
It was
funny.
in a Nuggets game in Ball Arena, like where he was talking mess to a variety of people and got ejected in the third quarter with the Timberwolves down 35. Like that's not great. That's not great.
I was just convinced, like initially, I'm like, did he like spit in Michael Malone's coffee during a pre-draft interview? Like, what did he do that is making Michael Malone like this proud of like, yeah, we got D'Angelo Russell out of there. I thought we played him off the floor, guys. That guy sucks. I've always said fraud.
Well, it's one of those things that like if you are the Lakers, how many guys can you really trust in the Western Conference Finals is a big question. Where I think you could trust Rui. I think you could trust LeBron and AD, of course, and I think you can trust Austin Reeves. But you start taking some guys off the box. Like if Dennis Schroeder can't hit threes, I think the Nuggets are going to dare him. He made 2 of 2 in this last game, but if he misses them in the games going forward, then it changes a lot of things, and it changes a lot for the entire rotation. So if you take guys off the box a little bit, then that is an important step to making the Lakers a little bit more guardable and a little bit more beatable. But we'll just have to see. On the other end of the floor, though.
Can I just add on D'Lo really quick? Oh, yeah. Like he's someone that has basically been a barometer for the Lakers' success during the playoffs. Like not necessarily where he has to go off for them to win or something. They're not that reliant on him, but he is such a luxury that like when he does go off and he does have a big scoring night, the Lakers have basically been unbeatable, like when his shot is on, because he's just not a guy that opponents are going to send their, with all due respect to KCP, like he actually might be the Nuggets' best defender, maybe, or he's
their best guard defender probably.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
yeah. And so like they're putting him on Russell. So that is going to make Russell's life a little bit more difficult than it has been in past series where he's been able to take advantage of sort of, your Tyus Jones, your John Morant's, your Steph Curry's, at least making him work, Klay Thompson type of thing. And so like that's going to make Russell's life a little bit more harder. But I think that one of the things when we're talking about adjustments, like I think the Lakers are going to continue to really emphasize hitting the like, let's get Jokic's man out here. Let's make him work defensively. essentially, let's do the same thing that we did to Steph last round, where maybe we're not going to score every single time, but we're going to make him work. And so I think Russell can be a part of that strategy potentially, where they're having he's calling Jokic's guy out and trying to make him work and set up some of those little mid-rangers that he loves, and get himself in a rhythm a little bit, or at least make Jokić shuffle his feet, tire himself out defensively a little bit more, and try and get him fatigued, because that is something that the Lakers, they did it to Ja in the first round, they did it to Steph last round. Jokić is obviously a big, and so it's a little bit different, but I do expect them to sort of try and make him work a little bit more, and I think that guys like Russell, guys like Dennis are going to be a part of that strategy, I would imagine.
No doubt, and like, I completely agree. I don't think that Jokić worked that hard on the defensive end last game, and
I don't think so either. Yeah, I would expect them to spam that button a little bit more.
Yeah, and that definitely helps. But I also think it was kind of by design. It was one of the reasons why he could play 42 minutes, and I think he knew that, and I think the Nuggets knew that. So we will see.
And he also, I will give him credit, it was much smarter about where he was reaching his hands on AD than he was. Like, he's grown a lot in that respect. And obviously, I've watched Jokić since then, but I was curious about, like, okay, AD's pretty good at drawing fouls on bigs. Is he's going to be able to get Jokić, kind of getting his hand in the cookie jar and stuff like that? AD's one of the better centers in the league at sort of drawing a whistle and, getting that. And I thought Jokić was really smart about the way that he defended him, kept his, Darvin's had a saying all playoffs, like, put your hands where they can see them, like, get your hands up. And I thought Jokić was really, really good about making sure that his hands were in full view of the refs the whole time. Just kind of use that upper body strength. Use that. If AD gets by you, it's not the end of the world. You get yourself in foul trouble. Although he did by the end, I think, have 4 fouls, right?
He had 4. But one of the reasons why was because they actually challenged the call on Murray, and it was forcibly placed onto Jokić at that point. So
yeah.
If that had been to
although
Murray,
that ended up being good because Murray would have fouled out by the end, because I think he finished with 5. So it ended up being a smart challenge. But yeah, I would expect the Lakers to try and spam the foul trouble button a little bit more, and the fatigue button a little bit more.
We love that over here. We love hearing that about the old foul drawers.
Hey, I'm just saying, they draw a lot of fouls. They have a lot of guys who are very good at it. It's not, it's not, I know everybody, I know no other fan of any other team wants to hear this. Austin Reeves is good at drawing fouls. He's good at drawing contact. It's not just flopping.
Because of how skinny he is and because of how floppy his hair is,
I'm convinced the hair is partially a strategy. I'm glad you recognize this. I think
it looks like he's being shot by a gun.
It's so visible when it flies back that I think it allows for more. I wouldn't be surprised to see him grow it longer this summer. He's gonna have Nash hair by next year, and just grow it all the way out. And AD is really good at getting, he has had throughout his Lakers career various bigs in foul trouble hell, just because he is a guy that he has a little bit of that kind of Kevin Durant bigger, slower, but Kevin Durant shiftiness. I'm going to kind of get you off your spot and catch you reaching back in when you're trying to get back in position type of thing. And he is good at sort of going through a guy's chest and trying to finish, and that at times will entice calls. And the Lakers are a very physical team. They're a team that plays a lot in the paint because they don't have a ton of shooting, and I do expect that there is going to be a game this series where you and other Nuggets fans are convinced that the NBA has rigged it, and I think that is something that is going to happen.
It'll be a Tony Brothers game. I have a pretty strong.
I love that every fan base has their rep. Do you guys have beef with Scott Foster? Is that for Lakers fans? It's Eric Lewis, who they hate. Which look, there were a lot of pictures that came out after that. I don't know how much closely you followed this, the LeBron game in Boston, where very clearly he was fouled on a final go-ahead attempt, and the refs had the sleepless nights tweet and whatever. And Lakers fans during that time, some of the reasons that the refs may have had sleepless nights is that Lakers fans had dug up photos of Eric Lewis's family all in Celtics jerseys, they're big Boston fans. And again, I'm not condoning that sort of behavior, but I understand why Lakers fans are worried about that ref specifically.
Tony Brothers has ejected Jokić 3 times, bro.
Love it. Let's go.
Get his line.
He's Joey. He's the Joey Crawford. Jokic is Tim Duncan. That's great.
Honestly, we're gonna see what happens.
Get him on game 2. I need it. Let's go.
It's gonna happen. I am already resigned to my fate. All right. Hey,
I want him thrown out in the first quarter.
Sick.
I just want to see the reactions.
It will be it'll be hell. That's for sure. These
Yeah.
are gonna be great ratings. Although it is funny that we haven't heard a ratings tweet yet from the NBA after this one. So we'll see what happens.
Is Jokic's success bad for the NBA? I think a lot of people are asking this question.
Next on First Take. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get to more adjustments, and then I'll ask you whether Game 1 affected your view of the series or not. But first, everybody, Mile High Sports has been doing great work over the course of these last few years, over this course of several years, and doing amazing things consistently. It is a great time to be a Denver sports fan, and the coverage here at Mile High Sports has never been better. As you guys know, I'm doing okay on the Denver Nuggets side of things. You're here, obviously, and I appreciate you. We have a wide range of reporters and podcasters, though, that are covering the other pro and college teams across the Front Range. Make sure to check out Cody Rourke on the Broncos beat, Drew Kreisman covering the Rockies, and Arif Dean, although he is now covering the newly defeated Colorado Avalanche in the playoffs. That's unfortunate. That's like we've got other guys that you can definitely step to it and be interested in for sure. Also, one of the other guys, Zach Seegers, is covering the CU Buffs, and if you're following the CU Buffs at all, Deion Sanders has been a major change over at that program. So make sure to go check it out. All of your local Colorado sports coverage is available at milehighsports.com and across social media at Mile High Sports. Plus, be sure to check out the latest issue of the MHS magazine. Every team, every day. This is Mile High. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I think we probably need to pin down that Pickaxe and Roll logo to the actual graphic. I just realized that it's been popping up on the other stuff, and it's been doing it for months, and I haven't really said anything about it, Harrison. No, that's okay. We're having fun here. Joined by Harrison Wind, obviously.
No, hey, look, that's a Freudian slip. That's okay. I'll take it. Like, it's not often that there's two Harrisons covering a series, so yeah. I'm glad that we are getting the Harrison Bowl once again as a repeat of 20. Although it was the true Harrison Bowl in 2020 when we also had Harrison Sanford of the Inside the Green Room podcast. That might have been the first playoff series ever covered by three guys named Harrison.
That's two
per SB Nation stats and info. You
guys have to have the Harrison off at some point, or the Harris off at some point.
We actually have decided we are meeting in Temecula to fight to see who is going to be the one true Harrison when he is out here for
the one Harrison to rule them all.
Yeah, if he's I don't know if he's actually coming. I haven't talked to Wind in a little while.
My gosh, no, big fan of Harrison. He's doing great work for DNVR as always.
Thank you. That's nice to be.
No, it's all good. We're having great stuff. Harrison Faigen, of course, is here with us covering the Los Angeles Lakers and then helping me out on Pickaxe and Roll. Back to adjustments. This one, Denver avoiding screens against LeBron James. He hunted Jamal Murray consistently, like from the get-go, basically, but especially in that second half. They making that run, trying to, whether it's in the pick and roll, whether it's in the post, he was trying to get Jamal switched onto him to create advantages for the team, and definitely did. Part of it was Jamal Murray was sick. He's had sickness and then an ear infection that has made things very difficult for him and hasn't really practiced each of these last couple of days. He put up 30 still, and clearly it didn't impact him a ton, but it probably impacted him on the defensive end just a little bit. Though we've seen this with Stephen Curry. We've seen this with LeBron doing it to small guards consistently. He's always going to try to get those guys into tough positions, and Jamal Murray is no different on that. Can the Nuggets fans expect a reprieve from LeBron James at this point if he knows that he can get that switch?
I'm going to say number one, no. And number two, I don't think an ear infection is necessarily the biggest impediment to Jamal Murray guarding LeBron James. Although I will grant it probably didn't help.
Apparently it was really painful. Apparently he was feeling a lot.
No. Yeah, I'm not trying to make light of it at all. I'm just saying, like, I don't think, like, even Jamal Murray, fully free of any illness, I'm not sure is necessarily the defensive answer on LeBron. Although I did think it was, there was one point, sort of in the third, it was either like late third or early fourth, where the Nuggets Nuggets a couple times came out with Murray just on LeBron, just like avoided the switching, like whatever. And I almost feel like it threw him off a little bit. It was like sort of the primary defender version of just like leaving a guy wide open. He's like, wait a second, what? Like he's on me to start? Like it, and I thought it kind of like gummed up the works a little bit where he was almost like, okay, wait, what do we do now? Like where I thought I was going to have to run him through screens. And so I expect sort of that to be, them to expect that sort of trick. But I thought that was a smart little thing to just sort of, like, hey, he's going to end up on you anyway. Let's just like start out the possession and defend straight up everywhere else and see what happens. And see if this throws you off a little bit. And I thought it worked, to some degree. I do expect LeBron, this, like you mentioned, this has been his whole career. Like he tries to bully these guys and go after, these sort of small guards on switches or primary defense out of the post, whatever it may be. He is going to try and make Murray's life difficult on that end. And, so yeah, I don't think that Nuggets fans should necessarily expect a reprieve from that. Although, again, I don't think it'll be just LeBron trying to hunt him either. Like, I think the Lakers will continue to look to sort of make Denver think about things using multiple guys and trying to sort of keep them guessing, keep them working, keep their heads on a swivel and just sort of mentally and physically fatigue them a little bit.
Sidebar, I just saw some people mentioning Jimmy Butler in the chat. The Miami Heat are probably going to win game 1 here. They're up by 8 with less than 30 seconds remaining.
Unbelievable.
And Jason Tatum turns the ball over 3 times in the final 3 minutes, including on 2 traveling calls, which is
at this point, like they just have to be terrified of Jimmy Butler, right? Like he's like the boogeyman for them. It's unbelievable. Like he has risen from literally like the NBA version of the dead to like come to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they lost a play-in game. Like
I couldn't believe it. For the entire year, I called the Miami Heat average. I still don't know if they're not average.
Average was a compliment for like a good chunk of the year. Yeah.
Right. I just think the Eastern Conference is full of frauds, and I have thought for that for basically my entire livelihood. But
I think Jimmy is like the first player in NBA history to actually figure out like the mythical switch, like he has actually figured out that there's some switch somewhere in your body that you can flip that just activates playoff mode on. And he's like, you know what? I'm a 40% 3-point shooter now. I just am. I've decided this, after sort of, he's getting all of his misses out of the way in the regular season and then regressing upwards to the mean. He's figured out something. It's,
he's a video game character. He's just powering up. I have no idea even who to compare him to in the video game world. Like you probably know better than I do, if we're being honest. Like who powers up in the way that like it's for some like I don't know, Naruto kind of shit. I've never watched Naruto.
Yeah, no, he's like, it's like, to go back to Jedi Survivor, he's like Cal Kestis when he activates, like the slowdown mode on everyone. You hit the 2 joysticks and all of a sudden everyone's slowed down and you're just going ham on him with your lightsaber. That's Jimmy in the playoffs. He's just, yeah.
It's you know what it actually is? It's him opening up the second end of his lightsaber.
Yeah, no, he's Jimmy's dual wielding in the playoffs.
I was playing with one lightsaber before. Now I'm playing with 2. That's amazing.
I'm convinced he must shoot threes with his eyes closed during the regular season to throw teams off. Like I don't understand how this is possible.
I love it. Aaron Gordon's role. We talked about this a little bit. Maybe like just getting him off the court at times, but also we've seen what happens when teams try to involve AD in the pick and roll. Like the Warriors won a game like that when you're trying to hide him on Andrew Wiggins and Wiggins starts setting screens for Steph, and you could probably win one game like that. I wonder if Denver has the actual juice to be able to do that, if Murray's capable of doing that. I mean, he's been a playoff riser so far for much of his career, and I'm not sure the Lakers really want to play with fire on that front. So if they play drop in that situation where you've got AG there, AG's also a good enough passer that he can do some of the Jokic stuff, just not a ton. So we'll see. We'll see what it ultimately looks like. I don't want to spend too much time on that though, because I'm very curious as to hear your other perspectives on. Did game 1 affect your view of the series at all? Like what was your first thought after watching that game?
Not really, I will say, because again, I'm someone that expected this to go long and expected it to be competitive, and I also frankly expected the Lakers to lose game one. I said this on I did a radio hit, yesterday morning where I outlined what I think my map of the series is going to be, and I sort of anticipated them losing game one. I think again, the Nuggets are the number one seed for a reason. They have home court advantage for a reason. They have one of the best actual home court advantages in sports in terms of the altitude effect and actually having that be a real thing that hits players versus just oh man, the fans are loud now when we miss rather than when we make or something like that. There's a little bit of that, but there's also the, oh my God, I can't breathe and this sucks. And so I do think, again, and that's not me saying that the Lakers only lost because of the altitude or something like that, but I think it's generally a factor early on in these series, and it is something that players, have to adjust to and get, acclimated.
One thing I do want to mention about the altitude is that everybody talks about how the Nuggets, they benefit from it, but they also have to deal with it themselves. These players get tired too. Now they might be a little bit more accustomed to it than some of these other teams, but it's not like the Nuggets have had that much longer in the altitude than the Lakers have at this point of the series. And when they go back
but there's a mental acclimation there, I think, too. Yeah. That you're used to getting hit with that wall a little bit, versus it is oh my God, I'm not as fast as I was, or why am I breathing so heavily, or whatever. I think there is a mental, a little bit that's over dramatic, but there is a little bit of that. And again, the Nuggets were going to come out and try and show why they are the number one team in the Western Conference, why Jokić should have won the third MVP, whatever they're trying to prove, why they should be the title favorite, whatever it is that they feel they are trying to prove and emphasize. They were going to come out, and I think like gangbusters in game one, and I sort of expected that. And I think the Lakers, I think they should have a solid chance to steal game two, but at the same time, if they go all out, this is a team whose energy has been up and down, throughout the playoffs. And frankly, I didn't even think that we got, obviously LeBron was hunting Murray a little bit. Last night to me was not fully engaged LeBron. He settled for jumpers a lot, early on. And that to me is he also was certainly not fully engaged defensively in that first half, maybe a little bit more in the second half, nor do I expect him to be fully engaged for, however his entire minutes load, at age 38. That's just not something that's realistic to expect, and it's not something he's going to do. And so there is going to be a degree if he's going to pick his spots throughout the series. And I think that if they do go all out to try and steal game two and tie this thing back up at 1-1, then I don't think that they're necessarily going to be able to hold serve on their home court like they have so far throughout this series. This is a team that, again, energy level, execution level, they're very up and down because they're so reliant on these two guys that are both sort of battling injuries and both sort of battling, different issues. AD still has that foot thing that he's playing through. LeBron has, the German LeBron of feet doctors, whatever, told him it was the only one that told him he didn't need surgery. They're both playing through stuff. And so their activity and ability to go all out has been up and down throughout the playoffs. And so I think that, I think they're going to play better in game two than they did to start game one. I think they potentially steal that one. Even if they don't, maybe they're able to sort of, capture some home court advantage and tie this thing up. And maybe they're not. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit, and maybe they actually aren't as good as I think they are. But I think that this team is better defensively than they showed last night. I think that they have some more offensive things and some more tools in the tool bag that they can go to. And I also think that one thing that I keep an eye out for is, to that point of LeBron's sort of defensive engagement and effort level, the one area where he still locks in pretty much 100% of the time is post-up defense. And because it's okay, no one's going to notice if I get back cut 17 times. No one's going to notice as long as I sort of wave my hand and I yell at someone, or I'm quarterbacking the defense on the back line. Nobody's going to notice that I just gave up 6 layups this game to, Bruce Brown or whoever it may be, back cutting me because I just was sort of standing up and hoping AD would get the rebound. And then I can sprint. I got, X amount of sprints left in my legs per game, and I'm going to see it. So at that point, I'm going to run. Not going to use that on defense. But, LeBron is still incredibly strong. One of the strongest, players in terms of just proportional strength that I think we've seen in NBA history. And so I would actually look for, I think we're going to see him on Jokić at some points of the series to both engage his defense, because that is a matchup that he will take personally, and not just sort of he's not going to let Jokić just back him down. Jokić may back him down anyway, anyway because he's incredibly strong. But I do think that we're going to see, in order to sort of get the most engaged version of LeBron, like that would be one of the things that I would look for potentially if the Nuggets take Aaron Gordon off the floor and they're trying to, sort of in an effort to like maybe make the Rui matchup not as advantageous and the Lakers go a little smaller. I would look for some segments of the game where LeBron is on Jokić to sort of fully engage him and, allow AD to sort of continue to fulfill that roamer defensive secondary help that he's so much more devastating at.
Yeah, we're going to see if he can physically handle it. And you probably know it better than me, but I think one of the moments where we knew that Jokić was for real was back in 2018, where he was guarded by LeBron James on a switch when he was back in Cleveland. And he gets the switch. The Nuggets are up like 17 in the third quarter, gets the switch, backs down LeBron and puts up a jump hook over him for 2. And everybody kind of knew what that moment was. It was kind of cool to see the crowd kind of get up for that moment at that point, like 5 years ago. And now we're seeing it. And like, that could be the difference between Denver getting to their first NBA finals in history or not. And so like, it's going to be very fascinating to see whether he's able to do that or not. Like I think,
and to be clear, I don't think LeBron can clamp Jokić or by any means or whatever, but I think similar to what we saw from Rui last night, he can hold up enough physically to allow the help to come. Like, that's all you're really doing. You're not sending that guy because you think they're actually going to stop Jokić. Like, I'm pretty sure that if you had, Rui and Jokić and you put them on a court just by themselves, or even Rui and LeBron, and you just said, okay, like, you cannot leave the gym until you stop him from getting this jump hook off or scoring or whatever, I'm pretty sure Jokić would score every time. But that's not how basketball is played. And so you're going to have AD sort of coming over, trying to make that difficult, either make that shot difficult, force the pass, whatever. And I think that the Lakers will continue to try and, scramble some things. And that is one look that I would look for them to go to. But yeah, certainly not implying that LeBron is going to stop Jokić from he's just going to fluster him and there's no way he's getting to the basket or anything like that.
Before the series, I predicted Nuggets in 5 because I was aggressive and because I thought, okay, we're just gonna ride the wave and we're gonna enjoy this. We're gonna have a good time with it. And I just think that the Nuggets are a better team. I've thought that since basically December that they were the best team in the league, and not the best team in the West for sure. And now that the East has fallen apart entirely, I feel pretty confident.
I think it's safe to say that based on resume, right? They certainly have the best resume in the league right now. Playoffs and everything else included.
Yeah, so like you want to feel confident. Every little bit of my soul that says the Lakers are a better franchise than the Nuggets historically is dragging me back down and saying, okay, things don't work out for you. Things don't work out at all. And that this is not how this works for you, Denver Nuggets fans. So we're fighting against that for sure. I decided, you know what, screw it. We're going to kill Nug Life, which is what we call it. And we're going to say, yeah, this is what should happen on the basketball court, in my opinion, because I think the Nuggets are a better team. Now, I think what happened in game 1, I do think that I'd probably add a game for sure. Like I'd probably go Nuggets in 6 at this point, but that's me saying, yeah, Denver probably defends home court in that situation and they get game 2 and they make sure to claim home court and then they steal one in LA. And that's the hope, to be able to make it a shorter series. And even if they don't steal one, then Denver's shown the ability to win a game 5 and then a game 6 on the road. Like they just did that to the Phoenix Suns. And it's not like them because they had just been not blown out by the Suns, but it felt like the momentum had shifted in that previous series. Yeah. And then they got it right back, and it wasn't ever really that much of a doubt at the end. I don't know if it affects it that much, but what do you think, in your opinion? So you're still thinking Lakers in 7. I'm still thinking Nuggets. I'll say Nuggets in 6 now. What has to happen?
You're just saying that because I'm here. Yeah, as soon as I leave, you're going to be like, yeah, all that stuff was BS. Nuggets in 5, baby.
It's funny. I've been told by multiple people, stand strong in your takes against the Lakers, brethren. Come on now. And okay, I'll keep saying Nuggets in 5. I'll keep saying that. What has to happen in game 2 for you to change your view?
If the Nuggets blow the Lakers out in game 2, that would maybe shift it a little bit, because No, you know what? I'm going to say the Nuggets would have to win another close game in game 2, because at that point it's like, okay, the Lakers have thrown 2 really good punches and lost both times. Like I guess if the Nuggets just blow them out in game 2, then that would sort of follow the Lakers' general pattern of like, we're going to really, really lock in for one game, and then we're going to, sort of go half speed and see if we can steal this one. Like, we're not going to completely go in the tank or whatever, but this is something that they've done throughout their past 2 series where, they go all out, try to win game 1 on the road, and then rest up a little bit in game 2, defend home court, take that 3-1 lead, punt game 5, and then finish it off in 6, and that has sort of been their math throughout the series. And I didn't think that they could go to that because of the altitude factor, because of the adjustment, because Denver is frankly just like a better opponent, starting out a series. Like you don't know what's going to happen there in game 1. And so again, like that was all sort of what affected me to go Lakers in 7. But if the Lakers, throw another really good solid punch and they clearly go all out tomorrow night and end up coming up short again, then it's like, oh, like, how much gas have they used of this sort of, limited reserve that they have? And are they going to be able to defend both games of home court after sort of going all out in Denver? And like, I don't know that that's the case. So I guess that would sort of have to be what it is. Like, if it's another really close loss where the Lakers are, especially if it's one where like the Lakers outplay them as thoroughly as they did for like a significant stretch of that fourth quarter, and then Denver still has enough answers to come up and finish it out, then it's like, like that is a little bit problematic and not sort of the normal, played them tough on the road. That's a good sign. They'll beat them at home, whatever, just because of sort of the energy factor and the sort of nicks and knacks that both LeBron and AD are playing through.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating just because I think that you're right that if it is a close game and Denver's able to dig it out once again, then it means that, like you said, the Lakers worked hard for 2 straight games. And that's one thing that when you think about where the Lakers how they've gotten to this point, they didn't have to try in the game 2s. Like they did in at least like moderate amounts, but they knew that they didn't have to like go all out in those situations in order to win a series. I think they're going to have to go all out to win game 2. And if they don't, then like hypothetically, let's say they don't, they get blown out in game 2. Do you think that this Lakers team can win 4 or 5 if 2 of those games are in Denver?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but it does definitely, sort of hurt it a little bit. It's certainly the odds are against it at that point. And at that point, it starts to look a lot more like Nuggets in 5 or 6, where, if you come up short in these first 2 games, just because at that point, the math is against you and you basically have to be perfect. I'm not saying like, a team with LeBron and AD, I'm not going to rule them out of anything, but the odds go way down. And again, like that's sort of what's factoring into, like, if they come up short tomorrow, then I start to feel a little bit, less good about that Lakers in 7 pick.
I think for me,
but the one thing that I will say, like the thing that still gives me confidence coming out of game 1 as well, is that it's completely clear that the Nuggets have no one that's going to stop AD. And so if he's going to be able to be an offensive weapon, sort of, again, going up against a much less defensively stout, sort of option at the rim than he's seen in the last 2 series where, he has Draymond Green, who's always given him problems, always, sort of flustered him to a degree. And then Jaren Jackson Jr., the defensive player of the year, like, the Nuggets, again, with all due respect, they're just not that in terms of AD defense. And if AD can sort of, get rolling as easily as he was able to for the majority of last night, like that does give me confidence that this can be a long series and that the Lakers can come out, because he has been someone who offensively has had to be up and down because he just, given how much he has to exert defensively on that end of the floor, he's not always able to bring it on offense. And that has sort of led to the Lakers coming up short some nights, where if he can sort of get going offensively a little bit easier than he's been able to in these last 2 series, that does give me some hope.
I'm not going to lie. I think it's okay for Denver if AD continues to try to go for 30 or 40 and then also have to defend Jokić, because it's just a question of fatigue. It's just a question of conditioning and wearing down. And like in a long series where if you're Jokić, you're knock on wood, like you're doing pretty well from a health perspective and from a conditioning perspective right now. AD is still liable at various points to develop a knack, to develop whatever, like a bruise, not or actually
he's
like
playing through a stress reaction in his foot. Like they're saying it's like, oh, like he probably doesn't have to have surgery or whatever till the end of the, till the off season, or like if he has to have surgery, maybe it's just like healed enough to play. But the Lakers down the stretch of the season just like didn't play him back to backs. Like this is still an active injury that he's listed with on the injury report every single game. So yeah, like that could get worse. As we've seen with AD's history, anything else could happen. I'm hopeful that it doesn't, because I think this is going to be a great series. But you're absolutely right. Like the fatigue, and that's again like why I feel good about the offense is like he's not having to fatigue himself as much on that end to get those points as he was in past series.
I do think that Jokić is going to scale it back a little bit offensively, and he's going to try to get more guys involved, especially if they go to this Hachimura matchup where you continue to generate the open threes, you continue to generate the cuts, try to set other people up at the rim, and he could definitely do that. He can absolutely do that, but he's also going to have to be even more into what Anthony Davis is doing on the offensive end. Like Denver can't, like, I think that personally, like this may sound like copium. I think that what Jokić did defensively was pretty calculated in that second half and did not expend a lot of energy on that half.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you can sort of tell these things. And like I've seen AD have games where he goes through that, or like especially LeBron does this quite a bit, where it's like you can tell when LeBron is trying to stop someone versus when he is trying to like, hey, if you take a jumper, that's not the worst thing in the world. Like you can have like this and that and whatever, and like I'm just not going to foul you, and I'm going to try and get it back on offense.
No doubt.
Jokić played foul trouble defense almost down the stretch of that game a little bit.
There's certainly some of that, and like honestly, if we're getting Tony Brothers, then he may not be able to touch AD. Like we're gonna see about that, but we can cross that bridge when we come to it. Which Nuggets home game do you think the Lakers are most likely to win going forward? If they are going to win the series, they're going to have to win a road game. Is it game 2, game 5, or game 7?
Ooh, that's it. I mean, if we're getting into probabilities, I think like you almost have to say 2, right? Just because that's the game that they're guaranteed to have. But I think, in terms of the game that I feel sort of like weirdly the most confident, I don't know. For some reason, I'm feeling 5. I don't know. It's just a vibe.
Just a vibe, baby.
Yeah.
That's they're tied 2-2. Make sure to steal the game 5 so you can have game 6 on your home court. Like, with up 3-2, that's it's an understandable thing. But if that were to happen, if the Nuggets were to win the first 2 and then lose the next 3, that would feel pretty tough. That would be a pretty tough barrier to overcome.
If it makes you feel better, it's hard for me to pick this Lakers team because, again, I hate to keep harping the energy drum, whatever, but like that has been a real thing for this team. And it's why I wasn't willing to pick them in anything less than 6 in any of the prior series. I went Lakers in 7 last round. They ended up getting it done in 6. I went Lakers in 6 in the first round. That's what they did. It's just hard for me to envision this team winning 3 games in a row at any point, which again is why I would expect this to be a longer series.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like, I mean, Denver's got their work cut out for them. I think they've got to hold home court if they are going to win this series. If they're going to do what I think that they can do, and that's win it in shorter than 7, then they've got to get a road game, and they're obviously capable of that. They've shown that in the 2 previous rounds, but we will see what it ultimately looks like. But Harrison, I have kept you on way longer than I said I would.
Just 5 minutes over, and I actually still have one. I mean, this is what we do, but I have one more question for you. Like, sure. How, coming out of game 1, how impressed were you with Jokic's ability to adapt to the Ishbia so quickly after seeing that move for the first time? Because, again, like Austin Reeves, with all due respect, not the strongest NBA player. I thought that was impressive how quickly Jokić mastered the oh my God, I'm gonna, no. Yeah,
he's well. I mean, if you're
that's
what
the greats do, though. Kobe.
The actual teachers of the move, LeBron James has been teaching seminars on that move for years to come, and we've got plenty. Frankly, we've seen you. We've saw the film. We know what happened.
I thought it was frankly disrespectful for him to do Austin Reeves' move on Austin Reeves. That was
that certainly hurts Austin Reeves' case in that regard. But it's also funny that we got a lot of that from people that were complaining about Jokić flopping in the previous round, where had to worry about Booker making the faces like that. That was when he makes a face in the picture. And I
I hate flopping complaints because every single team does it. Every single team has guys that flop, except for unless it's about James Harden, because that man grifted his way to like an MVP and whatever. Like that's the one where I think that you can complain about it because it was like the primary component of his game that allowed him to unlock everything else was the grifting. Everyone else, like I'm so tired of every single round is like teams, fan bases accusing the other one of flopping. It's like I don't want to hear from Nuggets fans like, oh man, like, you know, like Austin Reeves flops. It's like, yeah, have you seen the guy that like is your 2-time MVP? It's like 300 pounds and like, you know, like it certainly throws his head around a little bit.
There are levels to this shit. I do want to say that, like, look, there's a reason why Jokić had to start doing it, and it's because he wasn't getting the calls before. I think you can.
No, I mean every team does it to get calls. That's my point. Is like, you know, and again, I don't want to hear it from Lakers fans complaining about Jokić because it's like, have you seen Austin Reeves' hair? You know,
Austin Reeves' hair is the real MVP if we're being honest. So it's very.
We made it almost the whole series before the COVID the podcast before the COVID after effects hit me. I you know, we
didn't even hear it.
Okay, all right, that's good. We went 3 minutes, so 3 minutes too long.
It's okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right about it. But look, we had a good time. Harrison, thank you so much for hopping on the show. Do you have anything to plug before we head out?
No, I mean, just, you know, check out Silver Screen and Roll, check out, you know, SB Nation. Like, you know, we're going to have coverage there of the you know, finals and, you know, the playoffs as they go along. You know, the Silver Screen and Roll obviously is where I do all of my writing. And so if you want to catch any more of my perspective on the series or any of the adjustments or any of the developments, like, I'll be over there. We have a good crew. And yeah, you know, just the Lakers Lounge, if you want to hear me, you know, twice a month, I go on there with Anthony Irwin and, you know, we have a good time.
Awesome. Fantastic. Michael, can you hit that outro music for me? Everybody, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. Thank you so much to Harrison for hopping in. Harrison Wind, of course. Harrison Faigen had to take the day off. But everybody, thank you so much. Hit that like button on the way out if you can. I'll be live most likely tomorrow night after the game, but you never know. Maybe it'll end up being Friday morning. We will just have to see. But like Harrison, we're going to try to go live, and hopefully Denver can pull out a win. That will be a much better thing for my heart rate than this last game. Should be good. Hit that like button on the way out. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.